Hi, this is Desiree.
Anna,
Aiden,
and Bjorn.
coming straight from Drake High in California.
Today we will be talking about some things that we can all relate to.
Respect and tolerance.
But what are respect and tolerance? What do they mean to teens in Marin?
And how does a tolerant view affect someone's relationships?
In this podcast, we will be addressing those questions by exploring experiences from our past.
Right after the break.
Do you recall not long ago when you would walk on the sidewalk? Innocent, remember all we did was get.
I also asked the teenager if respect impacted people more in Marin versus elsewhere, and she said, I think it depends on the area outside of Marin. Some places are similar to us and have respect for others and tolerance, while others across the U.S. don't have an open respect for people and tolerance for their differences. When people have no respect or tolerance for you, of course that's going to impact how you view yourself as well as how you view others.
I think that's very true.
Yeah.
That totally plays into like where you live, the area that you are. Some places are like gangster towns and
Yeah.
stuff where a lot of crime and stuff happens, and there's just the way that people act towards each other is a lot different.
So my snapshot, the narrative I wrote, the third one, also goes along with the quote Desiree got from a teenager, saying that based on where you live, and based on where you grew up, you are going to feel differently about things. And so one day on summer vacation, my entire family was sitting in the living room of my grandparents' house, kind of enjoying conversation, just talking about whatever. Like, how was school, how was work, all that good stuff. And so my aunt, she's like, oh, here's this really funny picture of my son. And it was the son kind of like blackout drunk, wearing women's underwear, which is kind of bad, but it was laughable. But then she shows it to my step-grandmother. It's important that she's step, because she hasn't always been in the family. And she says something that's not so great. She says, oh, he looks like a queer. And my transgender uncle sitting across the room hears this and exclaims, that's the most offensive thing I've ever heard, and he storms out of the room and drives away.
So I can tell that they weren't really aware of their surroundings and like being respectful to who's around them. And that's really important because even though you might not think that it affects people, it really does.
Yeah, you have to think before you say something, because you don't know if it's going to hurt somebody else that's around you or hears it. Also, my snapshot 3 conclusion was saying pretty much that there's bad and good people everywhere, and respectful and non-respectful people, no matter where you go. For example, I went to Morocco on a summer vacation over the summer, and their culture is a lot different than here. So there was a lot of things that they would consider disrespectful or...
Oh yeah, I can see that, especially with language barriers. Like, you might say something.
Yeah, and then also they weren't always very nice or respectful, especially in this one place called Marrakesh. It's like the gypsy city in Morocco, and it's there was a lot of rude and disrespectful people, not very nice. But on the other hand, there were some nice people, and when we went to a city called Agadir, there was also a lot of nice people there. We made some friends, and there was nice and mean people there.
It definitely seems like in, at least Marin, it's like a lot more tolerant here than
But another thing that people tend to do, which can be seen as a problem and definitely is you look at a place, you see some people and you generalize and you say, oh, all the people there are this. And that's also a really bad thing, because you're not looking at all the people individually, you're like looking at the entire place as a whole. So then I might say, oh, the people in the South tend to be more racist, more homophobic, more whatever. But that doesn't exclude the possibility of there being really, really great, nice people there. And even if they are those things, that's terrible, but they can still be decent, they can still be good people. But they can be lacking in knowledge, and that causes them to form conclusions about things they don't really understand, and those conclusions can hurt people.
That's very true, because also some people might say that Marin is really full of nice people and everybody there is so great, but that is true. There are a lot of nice people here, but not everyone. For example, we were driving one time and this biker did not stop at a stop sign, and he almost hit our car, and he got really angry and spit on our car. So he was definitely not respectful at all.
Yeah. So I remember a personal experience, kind of like Bjorn's, in Morocco, where I went to Davidson Middle School.
Which is in Marin, that's important
Yeah.
to this.
But it's not the nicest of Marin, which also has to do with how Aiden was saying not everyone in Marin is super tolerant and nice. So I was walking down a hallway, and there was a bunch of Hispanic people like lined up on the sides of the locker hall, and like they looked really scary, and I was just like a little 6th grader, and I was super scared of them. And so I was really nervous to walk by them because they just looked really scary.
Do you think that was generalizing because they were different, or because they were actually like glaring at you, like looking kind of like scary?
It was mainly like what they were like wearing, which was like different.
Yeah.
And like all they had to do was like tap. They liked to like tease the 6th graders.
Mm-hmm.
And like so they just like tapped me on the side with a broom, which is like nothing, but just like it was like symbolic of what they could have done. And
yeah, like they had the power to mess with you, and you couldn't
really
do anything about it.
Yeah, and they didn't even have to try at all. And they really like to make fun of like the white kids, which is like not all white kids are like super like lame or anything.
Yeah.
Which was definitely a generalization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can kind of see where Anna's coming from, but I had my own experience because I used to live in Clear Lake, and there's definitely like a stereotype. People always are like, "Oh, you came from there, isn't it like a bunch of drug addicts and
Is it
things
really
like
that?
No, it's not really like that. It's like it's maybe like this one part of town, but it's kind of more.
Stereotypes aren't good. That's like there's a lot of that.
So, do you feel that based on characteristics or like prior experiences or where you've been or what you've done, that people have stereotyped about you or maybe said some things that aren't true or maybe felt a way about you that you didn't really like?
Yeah. Definitely like having people say that I was from a place where there's all drug addicts. It kind of like people look at you differently, and
So when they did that, how did you treat them back?
Yeah, how did their response to...
How do you respond to them?
they were kind of more judgy, I would say, about like how they acted towards me because I was in that environment.
No, but like when they said something mean to you, how did you react to that? What did you say back to them, or you didn't say anything, or?
No, I didn't.
Okay. To the story I had, my Snapshot 3 of the narrative, about my less than usually tolerant grandma, or step-grandma, and my transgender Uncle Ben. Something that stood out for me in that was, at the end, it was my grandpa that kind of diffused the situation. And you have to understand that he was someone that grew up in the South, not like a liberal guy, isn't exactly what you think of when you think of like, oh, super tolerant, super nice, super whatever. Not to say that you can't be nicer than anything if you're not liberal. His overall message was unconditional love, whether or not someone else was something that he agreed with or not. And that's kind of exactly what tolerance is. It's understanding that someone's different, and whether or not they are different, understanding that they're just as much human as you.
Yeah, and it shouldn't matter who you are or what you're like. You should still be treated with the same amount of respect and tolerance as anyone else.